started going started going through the program, and I just didn't really, I had a change of heart halfway through, and I really didn't know what I wanted to do. It's kind of just working at the movie theaters downtown, and working at Wyoming Garage Door Service, and was like, I can't do this the rest of my life. So my stepdad kind of introduced. He's a civil engineer, and we were talking about GIS one day, and he's like, there's a GIS program at Casper College. You should check it out. So I did, enrolled, and yeah, I mean, it was great. I really enjoyed it as someone coming from a computer background. I really enjoyed working on computers, and yeah, I felt like I really excelled, and everything just came pretty naturally to me. So after graduating, I moved to Lincoln, Nebraska. I got an internship with Olson Associates, their civil engineering firm. And my first job was I actually worked for Lincoln Water System through Olson Associates, and my primary job was digitizing water service lines. And that's the line that goes from the water main out in the street into your house. And they didn't have any digital record of those service lines. So they wanted me to digitize them. And I digitized in a 2-year period over 100,000 service lines. It was quite a job, but
Wow.
just that one, really got me to where I am today, because I didn't know a thing about civil engineering. I didn't know anything really about water utilities. I know basic stuff. I know what a fire hydrant is, right? But I kind of learned a lot on the job, and everything just came naturally to me, right? It's just points, lines, and polygons, and their connections and their relationships to each other, and kind of just learned as much as I could there. And eventually the contract came to an end, so I had to find an actual job after that. So I've kind of applied everywhere over the Midwest, and fortunately found a job here in Longmont, Colorado, in the GIS department in Public Works. We fortunately used the same asset management system as we did in Lincoln, so kind of got a shoe in there because I was familiar with integrations between the two. And I think I beat out like 80 different people in this job, and which all because I knew this one asset management system. But that's kind of how I got in the door here. And then from there, I got hired on as a GIS technician, and immediately just started working my way up, and I became a senior tech within like 2 years of working there. And unfortunately, we had a flood come through Longmont, the Front Range area in Colorado in 2013. That kind of sprung me into a lot more GIS related projects regarding flood recovery and natural resource planning. And there was just a lot of projects going on. So here's an example of a map I made of different projects that kind of came after the flood, trail improvements, just there, many different projects in here. And I kind of helped different divisions in our city with many different kinds, kind of expanded my knowledge. And then I moved my way up to being an analyst, a GIS analyst, about 2015 or so. And then just kept working. People were starting to retire, and all of a sudden I'm the most senior level GIS analyst in the city. So now I'm a senior GIS analyst. And it's just so great to come to work and work on so many different things, because we don't work for So here's a look at our organization chart, and it's very different from any other place I've worked. That's probably not going to open right. We used to just live in this. I used to just live in this utilities world, but now we're kind of providing GIS services to our electric and municipal broadband department. So we map all the fiber lines, we map easements for them, and so many other different things. Just same thing with electric. And we also do, planning, facilities maintenance related projects, just asset management stuff. We also work for the police department, mapping crime related things, and we kind of just serve the whole city now instead of just the public works area. So it's really cool to come to work, and I don't know I'm gonna do that day. I mean, I kind of do, but I could get an email about needing to make some snowplow maps and in the morning, and then in the afternoon, the police department's having want me to do hotspot mapping of some crime areas or whatever. So it's just a really good different level of work. So I don't really enjoy doing the same things all the time, and you do not get bored working here, that's for sure. So I feel like coming from Wyoming, I really didn't know where I was going to end up working. I thought maybe, I was going to work in the oil and gas industry because that was the main employer there. But, there's just so many different areas you can work in GIS, and I would just say, don't limit yourself and keep your possibilities open there, because so many people are using GIS more and more, and there's people hiring for GIS folks all over the place. So just don't, think that there's only one solution for you. Refresh this here real quick. So anyway, so during the flood, we kind of were working just in ArcMap. We were making paper maps, and we've found the need to immediately have readily available data and maps for our citizens online, for them to see things as things are happening. And because of that, we've implemented our ArcGIS Online in our organization. And I'd say I work 50% online and 50% on desktop now, between ArcMap and ArcGIS Pro. And I just have some examples of some of the work that I've done. These are all embedded web maps. Here's an example of a tour of that flood I mentioned, kind of showing all the damage that was done. It's kind of just a slideshow tour, but kind of showing you where these were happening. You can see how much damage was done in the city, and that just caused a need for GIS support. I think we only had like 4 or 5 GIS people working for us before the flood. Now we have probably 10. So it's just expanding and expanding more and more as we as our city grows and as things happen. Another example of things we do, we manage the airport. We have our municipal airport in town. We kind of manage the leasing for it and help the airport manager understand where our lease areas are, where our hangars are, and we have all of our documents that pertain to each hangar associated to our GIS system. So we're able to click on our layers and then open up documents associated. And that's kind of a big project we've been working on this year. We also maintain, like I said, a lot of public information maps, like our trail status map Any resident can come in and find out where our trail closures are at any point in time. We also assist our our floodplain manager and managing our floodplain area, and we create a public facing map to see where folks are in the floodplain to determine whether in or out, whether they have to purchase insurance or not, and kind of with that flood that happened, it's changing quite a bit. So we always have to keep this map up to date. And kind of some of the other things we're working on right now is our utilities. Now, Jeff, remind me, do you guys go over geometric networks in your classes?
No.
Yeah, I'd say that was one of the biggest, like, from school to like real world things that I was came into was geometric networks and understanding the relationship between points, lines, and polygons in our different utility systems, and understanding, when, let me show you an example. When you move a water main in the street, you will see here all the points, lines, and polygons that are connected to it move with it, and that's because they're all joined together in a geometric network. This is now a old way of combining things together, and they've moved to a new system called the utility network. And my job for the next 2 years will be migrating our utility data for water, wastewater, and storm into the new utility network, which is an ArcGIS Pro only product.
So Brett,
go ahead.
I don't know if anyone is wondering, this is the old ArcMap software.
Oh, you don't use ArcMap anymore?
No, we're in Arc Pro. So
Yeah.
I just wanted to tell everyone this is what the old software looked like. So
yeah, we use it now 50-50. We have all of our utilities, and we have to use ArcMap for them with the geometric network, and we use everything that isn't in a geometric network we use Pro for. But learning Pro has been quite, on your own, has been quite a task these last couple of years. But I'm getting it day by day for sure.
Yeah.
But anyhow, so just be aware, there's going to be quite a few utilities, all over the United States, that are going to have to be doing the same exact thing, migrating over their points, lines, and polygons into a whole new schema and a whole new way of, it's to allow things like network tracing and different, higher level analysis, and they're just creating all the new tools in Pro. And so there's going to be municipalities all over the United States migrating their existing infrastructure in ArcGIS or ArcMap, or it's in our enterprise geo database, but they'll be migrating that over. So there's going to be more and more people hiring techs and analysts out there to kind of help out with these efforts, because it's not something that just happens. You have to do a lot of quality control and quality assurance testing to make sure all your utility, or all the pieces and parts, are working together. And there's just going to be a bigger need in the future for that type of need from the public utility sector. Some other things here. Generally, climate stuff's really big in our city, and they're doing a big study on heat indexes and air quality. Air quality is really bad on the Front Range, so we helped create this climate risk and vulnerability tool to kind of see all the different factors that affect our city, kind of help create these maps for them to kind of see where in our city we're have higher risk of flooding, more extreme heat or cold, except things like that. So there's that whole level of environmental GIS work going on. Another thing in like parks and natural resources, we have our trails system here, and we're creating our bike map that we make every year, and we do a lot of updates to it. So we get all of our feedback from our user groups on our GIS Online, and then we come in and fix it or whatever they need us to do. That's kind of what this map is. Like I mentioned, we work with the police department to do crime mapping, and here's a little example of just crime in our city over the last couple of years, and you can see where hot spots are. And using this map, they were able to determine where they wanted to place more security cameras in our parks and our downtown areas. So that's just another way GIS is being used in our city. We also have a ranger program that kind of like code enforcement. We actually have rangers because we have property up in the mountains that serves our water to our city. So we have a bunch of park rangers, and they have to keep track of all the different enforcement related tasks that they do. So we have this dashboard we created for them. They use our GIS collector and survey 123 to collect where they have different incidents in the city, and they kind of keep track of them. And they have this just in their office, so that when they come in the morning, they can see what's happened over the weekend or what other things are going on. Yeah, I've done a lot of talking. I know that you scheduled out 2 hours, Jeff.
I didn't expect us to go 2 hours. That's just what I put the Zoom meeting at. So.
Gotcha. Some of the other things, couple other things. We also route our snow plows, our compost trucks every week. So our sanitation, our trash trucks, and our recycled trucks, we also do, but that's a more static thing. But our compost trucks, we have people buying in and then removing themselves from the program. So we have places where they do pickups. This is actually our snow routes, but we optimize our snow routes to help cut down on cost and making sure that our snow routes are being driven the most efficient way. And we have a software that lives on top of ArcMap called Fleet Route. And I do this, at least on the compost side, I route our compost trucks every week and kind of tell them where to go. So that's like another thing we do.
What are the orange dots, Brett?
These orange dots represent each side of the street on this is for snow plowing. So the label, when it comes up here, let me turn this imagery off. They're starting the route here, and this is like a sequence number. So they're plowing this side of the street, this side of the street, this side of the street, and it's just showing them how to do it in sequence. And this is based on the most efficient way possible. Like, taking right turns is you can go through the route faster when you're taking more right turns and doing shorter segments in a more efficient manner. So we run it through this program that's all based on attribute table. We assign a value to each segment about the how long it takes to plow that one section. So then the software that lives on top of the ArcMap interface kind of comes up with the best way to route it. And then we create maps, we export it out to navigation systems, and then put it in the snowplow trucks for them to look at while they're actually driving the route. Because it's like we have a high turnover in our streets department and our sanitation department. So like this allows us to be able to pretty much put anybody in a truck and be like drive. So it's been pretty beneficial. Yeah, there's so many things I'm not thinking of because we do so much here.
I think
That's about it.
at all the examples you've shown, it's probably important to say that these maps, I mean, you push all of these maps are stuff that the public can go to a website and look at, right? This isn't just, I mean, that's what most of this is, right?
Yeah. Let me just show you here. This is our website, and all of our, not all of them, but most of our maps are on here to, like the trail maps on here. Our flood inquiry map, which is the one I showed you earlier, all of them are on here, and we work with our communications department to get them up on this website so that folks don't have to come to us to ask for it. It's just always there for them to see. We also run a lot of programs through our public works, like street sweeping, water main flushing every year. We have a lot of like yearly programs that we do, and we track the status of like where they're sweeping in the city so that people know when to pull their cars in, or things like that. GIS is used in every division in our city. It's pretty great. And we use ArcGIS Online to push those maps to them, whereas in the past we'd make a PDF, you send it, and it, those days are over. We just use ArcGIS Online to authorize these maps and share them with all of our stakeholders and our end users. What else on here? Oh, I was going to go over these last two things. So one of the things since I graduated, like I said, I learned quite a bit on the job. But when you do find a place, when you do find a job, if they do have an enterprise agreement license, or I would just suggest it anyway, the ArcGIS Online training website has so many valuable resources and like a niche related workflows that, are just very valuable to know. And especially if you're interested in specific things in GIS, they usually have a class or a webinar or some type of pre-recorded video to kind of teach you about it. And there's just so much to learn on there, and it's so valuable, especially when you're going to, apply for a job, and you have the certification training for desktop or for pro, and you can show them those things, or show that you have like about the utility network, or you've taken some of these additional classes on these different toolbars or different different specific tools. That really puts you ahead, I feel like, in the when applying for jobs. We really look for utility specific things when we're hiring for like utility techs and stuff. And if you just have just even the littlest bit of training, or that you've taken some training, because all these give you a certificate when you're done. You're kind of like showing that in your resume is, at least in my eyes, kind of put you ahead of the group. And then I also have my GISP. It's GIS professional certification, and that's ran through the GIS Certification Institute. I fortunately was able to get in before they made you take a test. You just had to provide that you had enough work hours and experience, but now you have to take a test. But having GISP on the end of your name also is another thing I'd recommend if that's something you want to go into. It definitely helped me get promoted. So yeah, that's pretty much all I got. If you have any questions.
I think we do have some questions. I hope we have some questions.
Would it be possible to take like 5 minutes before we do the questions? Bathroom break and all that? I need to figure out which ones to use. Or actually,
If you need to take a break, go ahead. I'm sure we'll still, do
Yeah.
people need a break or? Go ahead and step out if you need to, Wayne.
no,
We'll,
it's not, it's just.
Brett, what, so when you're looking for people to hire, are you you're in on the hiring process, right? For
Yeah,
GIS people.
yeah, on the tech level and analyst level, I am. We just hired a GIS manager, so that took all summer to do. But we just hired an analyst and a tech just recently over the summer, and to be honest, at least the analyst level, there was quite a few people who had like 1 or 2 years job experience, but the tech level, it was really hard to find qualified people. And we ended up hiring somebody that didn't have a whole lot of experience, but definitely from the interview, we could tell, he was very engaged and very interested in learning more and building on his already existing experience, and just like having the level of professionalism and like kind of showing your work, especially in the GIS world, like you can show what you've done, and that means a lot to GIS people, rather than just talking. I mean, talking with it, but like the guy that we hired, he had lots of different examples of things he did, and they didn't have to do with utilities, but we could tell that he had, the understanding of how things work, and we're training him from pretty much scratch. So, then these jobs, start out at like, I forgot what his hiring range was. I think it was like $28 an hour, so we have lots of room to expand here. And they're just like, there's a lot of municipalities right now that do not have GIS departments. There's just like subject matter experts that know GIS from school, a little bit, and they do a little bit of GIS, but just like we just see more and more lots of cities and BLM and Forest Service and different organizations needing like a full-time GIS people and GIS like technicians to do work. Like I said, I have a 2-year degree. I didn't go and get my 4-year degree. I'm not a school person, as Jeff probably knows. I'm just really like hands-on, like doing stuff, and I just literally worked my way up to the top, and I didn't need a 4-year degree to do it. And that's kind of how I see a lot of the workforce in GIS. It doesn't matter. It's starting to be not how much schooling you did. It's like how much like you can get a lot, like, I don't know. They're just not, you don't have to have a 4-year degree to get these tech jobs, and they pay well from the beginning. But you can only work your way up from there. Yeah, school is important, definitely not harping on that, because I can't tell you how many things I use still today that I learned in school, like doing DEMs and contour mapping, and like when I was in Jeff's class, we went down into Trona County Health Department and mapped mosquito populations. Like we still do similar things like that all the time, and just like data creation, data collection, those types of efforts we do all the time here. And I use some of the basic things that I learned back in my first GIS class I do today. So yeah.
So Brett, when you're hiring or looking for a tech job, looking to hire a tech position, I mean, a 2-year degree is fine, speaking at Longmont, right? Is that correct?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Yeah, the guy we hired had just recently just only had like he had a 2-year degree and he had like 8 months of actual GIS experience, and we hired him over, some other people that had 4-year degrees, but we could just tell like they hadn't worked with GIS. Like, we're looking for GIS people, not someone with a 4-year degree that was, not doing GIS work, but like took a GIS class. There was a lot of people that applied like that. We actually wanted the person that has real experience using Esri software to do the work that we need to get done. So, yeah.
I've got more questions, but I'll see if if
Yeah.
anyone in the audience has any questions. Anything that doesn't, don't be embarrassed or Aragon, yep.
Just what made him think that the other people weren't qualified versus, because he said he had so many apply that he didn't feel were qualified, so what made him feel that way?
So a student, he's in my intro to GIS course. Did you hear his question, Brett?
Can you repeat it? Sorry.
So the people that he thought weren't qualified, you're wondering what made him.
Yeah, just why did he say so many weren't qualified?
Why do you think so many people weren't qualified? What made them not qualified, I guess?
To be honest, their resume, it was just, the initial look at their resume, some of the wording that they were using about GIS related things that they've done. It wasn't, you pretty much could just see right through it, like they hadn't had experience using it. And kind of like the initial questions we asked, like, what's a projection system or what's a coordinate system? They couldn't answer like the basic questions, and it just weeded them out right away. Yeah, it was just kind of striking to me how many people that applied that did, like, I don't know, one class definitely wasn't enough for them, it seemed like. There's lots of different GIS jobs out there, but I'm just speaking in relating to utilities. There's, like I said, there's classes specifically on it online, and just taking a couple of those classes and getting yourself familiarized with utilities, GIS related things, really can set you apart. And that's not just for utilities. There's, all these different niche, things out there. Sorry, I can't think of things off the top of my head, but natural resource related things, or oil and gas, like specific oil and gas stuff. The people that are usually doing the hiring, they want those like niche skills. Not overall is good, but to get that in, usually it's like if you can just specialize yourself in a couple different things, and being able to show that on a resume really helps. And like I said, there's those trainings online that, you got your base understanding, but some of those like classes that go over utility networks or geometric networks, and some of those specific things really set you apart.
So I think most of that are in my classes, but we have an enterprise license with Esri, right? So you have access to those online classes that Brett's talking about, and they're free. And if you have questions about that, I can show you how to access those. So,
and I just also remembering another things is like, we're using field maps well, field maps are collectors now into field maps, but like ArcGIS field maps, survey 1, 2, 3, like navigator for GI, like all these different side applications of GIS, being familiar and having used some of those will also set you apart. Like, I don't know, we use them a lot here, and just having somebody that already has used it, like not having to like train people to do stuff because they've already used it before, is also another benefit when you're looking at a resume. Do you do that in your classes, Jeff, or go over any of
So
those?
I still train my intro course on, we still use the Trimble units, some of them,
Right.
but
That's definitely still beneficial. I
okay.
I GPS all the time. And I was the only one who knew how to use a Trimble unit when I came to the city in our GIS department. Our survey staff did, but our GIS department, like, we got all new equipment. I was like, I know how to run that. Do you?
Right,
So that's definitely still beneficial.
okay. What other questions? Wayne, I know you had a couple.
He's doing a great job of answering.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, I'm trying to brain dump as much as I can on you guys. You know, there's GIS just isn't, just using ArcGIS Pro. There's so many other things that connect to it. I just really suggest also with GIS moving more to the web, being familiar with working with GIS and ArcGIS Online, or using Portal for GIS and understanding ArcGIS Server and enterprise geodatabases and those type of higher level things, is also a benefit. Especially enterprise geodatabases, because is my screen still being shared, Jeff?
Not anymore, no.
Yeah.
Brett, are you there? What happened here? Oh. Did we lose Brett? I guess we lost Brett. I'm sure he'll be, there he is.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, we lost you for a second.
Technical difficulties. I don't know. Let me reshare my screen. So I just kind of wanted to show you what our enterprise geodatabase looks like.
Wow.
We have 800 plus layers that we manage in our enterprise geodatabase, and by we means like 10 of us, so not all of us are interacting with each of these layers, and some of these layers are new, old. We have a process in which we remove things, but this is like a huge thing that I learned on the job, was creating data and understanding versioning and understanding working in a multi-user editing database. You go over versioning at all, Jeff? I forget.
No, we don't. We talk about it in the 1110 course, but we don't, we don't have multiple editors working on one database. So
yeah, that's just pretty common in the workplace, at least in municipalities, is you have an enterprise geodatabase. There's multiple people working on different, like our utilities are in here, multiple people working like in our water, wastewater, and storm layers at the same time, and doing reconcile and post every week, and understanding how database functions work is also another benefit. Especially understanding SQL Server when you get into managing enterprise geodatabase. Definitely all things I've learned on the job, but if you can familiarize yourself or take any classes with understanding SQL Server, Oracle, any database related stuff, it's very applicable in the workplace. And then kind of just managing stuff in here is is a lot. And I don't know if they teach Python at Casper. Do they have any Python classes at Casper College?
I believe I think the computer science instructor,
They might, but it's not being listed in the catalog if they do,
okay.
at least last semester anyway. I didn't check this semester.
I thought she taught some Python classes, but
I just know that computer science that use Python, she can use how it works, like.
Okay.
Specifically, all you're doing is writing Python code.
is Python a language you would recommend, Brett?
100% Python. And, I still use, in ArcMap, Visual Basic expressions all the time. I know most of you probably don't know Jim Crum, but he taught me so much at Casper College, and I use some of that stuff almost every day that I learned in those computer science classes. So, just another thing to set yourself apart, and understanding ArcGIS Server and how to get data from here onto the web is another piece that is really important, at least in my world, because not a lot of organizations keep their data, especially their utility data, online for security purposes. So we have to publish our data securely to the web with ArcGIS Server, and understanding that piece and doing those types of tasks really all beneficial in the workplace as well. One thing I don't do a lot, I guess, is a lot of raster related stuff. We do feature extraction on occasion, but there are a lot of imagery companies, at least here in Colorado, Digital Globe, Maxar, some other places in Boulder, I forget, Sanborn. That's also a whole nother area you can move into in GIS or photogrammetry. They're a huge employer, at least here in Longmont. And there's a like 911 data company here that hires a lot of GIS people also, that manages addresses and center lines and like critical infrastructure. Yeah. So anyway, I just wanted to show you. Am I still sharing my screen?
Yep. Yeah.
So anyway, yeah, I just wanted to show you what our enterprise geodatabase looks like, because it's a lot.
Yeah, it looks like.
Yeah, we're going to be implementing Portal for GIS here in the next year, and managing data through Arc Catalog versus ArcGIS Online or the Portal is going to make our lives so much easier.
Mm-hmm. I think we got a question here, Brett.
Sure.
Okay, so Longmont's about 100,000 people. Would you say that you feel that your experience there and the types of work and workflows that you're seeing would be representative of other towns roughly that size without getting into a larger urban environment?
Yeah, I would say so. There's just, as the size of the city goes down, there's less and less GIS people, and you have, in GIS, as they always say, you wear a lot of hats, at least in, working with, local government or county, city government. They can't usually afford to hire a lot of staff. So you are working on all sorts of things. It just depends on how the organization's split up. That I've worked in, when I worked for the city of Lincoln, their water department was just a department within the city. I didn't do electric or storm or, parks or any of that type of stuff. I was just specifically working with water utilities, where we shared a lot of our data between each other through an enterprise geodatabase, but our responsibility was just for the water utility. Sometimes that's kind of how I feel like things kind of get, how it works is they're kind of GIS people are kind of siloed into their different areas. And then once a city reaches a peak and wanting to, it's like a hybrid or a centralized versus a hybrid environment. Usually at a certain point, they try to combine folks and so that you can work on multiple things. And I feel like 100,000 people is probably right at that sweet spot where they start to do that type of thing. Yeah. Does that answer your question?
Yes, it did. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Brett, when you say in smaller towns, GIS people have to wear a lot of hats, can you what do you mean by that?
Almost just like what I do now, but when I worked for the for Olson Associates, I did do some of their side consulting stuff for a small town, and they had one guy in their IT department that had to manage their water system, their sewer system, all pretty much every layer that the city had in their like all their digital data. And you have to know just a little bit about a lot, and that's how you start gaining experience in all these different areas. I didn't have any of this experience before I went into it. I didn't really know about planning processes or developing, land or, a lot of cadastral mapping stuff. However, I did learn a lot about it in your class, like drawing out, easements and property boundaries using meets and bounds and stuff. I was doing that today, but anyhow, yeah, they just can't afford to hire a lot of people. And so you literally, as the GIS person for a smaller city or town, you have to know a lot about a little about a lot. And then it's usually all about like creating data and understanding data structure. And, you kind of have to think about what you're going to create for that. Like somebody comes and needs you to create something for them. You have to think about if you're going to need to relate this data to other tables and having common fields and just schema development's pretty big. But anyhow, yeah, it's just a lot smaller cities just can't afford to have a lot of GIS people. So you're having to do a lot depending on where you work in smaller cities or towns.
Any other questions out there? Anything at all? Wayne, did you have some more? Or?
You've got a really good way of just approaching things on the way. Not really. I guess before you were the senior analyst, as you're working your way up, was there shop work, field work, equipment, or was it just more you working as a tech at a desk, stuff like that?
Right. Yeah.
Tight balance.
When I was hired, as a tech, I worked water, wastewater, storm, and most of my common work was putting new development, new utilities into our existing utility layers. So that entailed getting the preliminary drawings for a subdivision, georeferencing those onto a map, literally digitizing every single dot, line, and polygon, and then going out in the field and taking the actual positions of those and then correcting those in Trimble, and then bringing those in and then moving all those points. The reason we have to do it twice is because we have to have the data in there for our inspection staff to perform work orders on. So it's kind of redundant, but that's kind of how it works. But it was a lot of my main common purpose of doing tech work was literally just putting in our utility data into our systems. And that was like a primary part of my job. And I was doing that probably at least 70% of my job was digitizing plans. Does that answer your question?
It does, thank you. And it sounds like with the way that GIS is now starting to actually bloom, there's gonna be more and more of that work in a lot of places, is what it
Yeah.
sounds like.
Yeah, and as more of our public works needs to have, or more accurate data, we're providing our field staff using ArcGIS maps to go out there and do that. As GPS gets more accurate on your phone and be able to, have field staff do those types of things, we're like, managing that process on ArcGIS Online with collecting some of the more or less accuracy needed projects, like say our backflow prevent our or irrigation backflows that are in our parks. We just need to know where all of them are at in our park text. We provide them with a collector app to go out there and collect all those points so that we have an accurate a location where they're at. We just do a lot of data acquisition projects. I'm also working on one for right now for like signs. We're having students in our local community college here go out and collect all of our signs that are in our parks and trails areas, because we have so many and we don't have an accurate count of them. So they're literally going to be taking pictures, filling out a survey, and uploading it onto ArcGIS Online. And then we're going to kind of have like a condition rating for every sign and be able to provide that information to our decision makers to kind of understand which signs are in bad condition. They need to replace them right away, because it's hard to manage things like signs in our city. There's so many of them. Yeah.
I think we have another question here, Brett.
Sure.
Just out of curiosity, and I understand, working for government versus private is going to be entirely different, and
Yeah.
where working is going to be different. But from your experience, what is the turnover rate like?
Like in GIS like area.
In
Um,
GIS in general?
Yeah. It's not that high. However, in the last 2 years, there's been this weird thing since COVID with this great resignation thing where it's just been weird. Actually, and then the other thing is a lot of our workforce that when I was hired on, all the GIS people were almost at retirement age. They all came from working, doing surveying or doing other job like technical jobs, and they somehow found their way into GIS. And a lot of them were at retirement age. And when I first got hired, there were 3 people retiring, and I only had one other person to train me, and that person had only been there for like a year, so they didn't know very much either. So it was like learning it by yourself. But since then, prior to COVID, it was pretty steady. There wasn't a whole lot of turnover, but right now there has been a lot of turnover.
I've learned over the years that certain industries have a high turnover rate, and having a low turnover rate or traditionally low can speak very highly of the industry.
Yeah. I think, at least for me, having all these different things to do really, keeps your mind fresh, and it's just not the same old stuff every single day. It makes it fun to come to work. And I think people, at least that they're doing GIS, enjoy that type of thing. And so they want to stay. And, people, I mean, at least I can speak for myself. Like, I really enjoy what I do. So I don't really care to go anywhere. I mean, the salary, range is pretty much comparable anywhere I go on the Front Range, but I kind of, I'm just very fortunate to have such a wide range of things to do in GIS every day that it doesn't make my job stale, and it makes me want to stay here. Plus, we have really good benefits package here, and we have really nice pensions.
Yeah. You have a question, Amy?
Yeah.
Got another one here, Brett.
Yeah.
Kind of looking forward, are there ways that you would like to implement GIS in the municipal level that you haven't yet, or you've seen in other cities, or things that, you know?
Yeah. There's a lot of organizationally, like I said, people have been so siloed and like coming together and like this whole new thing with portal and creating data to serve to people to do their own GIS work has and allowing basic you're like enabling other users to do work is kind of like a new thought. Like it's always been like the GIS, just give it to the GIS person, but some of the tools online provide like basic capabilities to do data discovery, cursory type activities that you don't have to ask the GIS person to do all the time. We're kind of more going towards that, and that takes some training also with our staff, but they're really excited to learn those types of things too. So I feel like there's training staff to understand GIS and GIS products at a basic level has been a big thing lately, so that we can accomplish more here at the city. Sorry if that didn't answer your question. I'm sorry. Just this whole movement to web GIS has caused like for the better processes that were pretty boring, or not boring, but just these manual processes to be streamlined more and have our end users get what they need, like self-service has been kind of like a common theme here lately.
Any other questions anyone has? I guess I'll kind of maybe end it with a couple questions, Brad, and then if anyone needs to leave or need to go somewhere, feel free to get up and go. But you said you recently hired someone, but if someone was coming in for a job and they had a two-year degree for a job interview, and you kind of mentioned maybe this guy you just hired was at $28 an hour. I'm just curious, what is the starting base for someone with a 2-year degree in GIS? If you know that, maybe you don't know, but.
Yeah, I think it varies a little bit, but sorry, I don't have it right off the top of my head. It's a lot more than it used to be. I think when I started, my starting pay was somewhere around like $19.50, $20 an hour. This is when I worked at I was just an intern, but when I got hired on by the city, I think it was maybe just a little higher than that. But I think once just having those keywords in your resume that kind of pop out, that are like, I've worked with enterprise geodatabases. I do ArcGIS Online, work with hosted feature layers, and do create web applications, and just kind of like these keywords that really pop, that are like specific to, at least most places are Esri places, at least in local government, really kind of jump off the page or help your resume jump off the page. But at least just speaking here in Longmont, we don't really have a plan for people, like what you call it, like fast tracking anybody like that, but we kind of move people along, and we have levels for them to move up pretty quickly. And it's mostly because we're needing more higher level folks, and we compensate them accordingly. I'd say at least in Longmont, we're probably on the higher end of the hiring range. It's also expensive to live here though.
Right,
And we have taxes.
right. So and kind of along with that, you know, before everyone kind of got in the room and you were logged in and talking, you're saying you're working from home now, is that right?
Yeah, that's also another big plus is, you know, our newer staff, obviously they need to get the ropes and whatnot, but I work 100% remote from home. I wouldn't say 100%, like 95%.
Did COVID start that, or?
It did. We used to have this policy where every city employee was essential employee, and we all had to be there. But since COVID, it's kind of made leadership realize there's lots of folks, and this is GIS and all over the place. I never saw on, I still, you know, you never know what's going to come up. I still have LinkedIn, or not LinkedIn. What's the job website? I forget.
Indeed.
Indeed. Well, so I still get like job, you know, notifications. And before COVID, I never saw a whole lot that said remote, like in parentheses, like this is a remote job. I see them all over the place. So that means you don't have to leave Wyoming. There's people that want to hire you right now for like remotely, and you can work from home because they're out there.
Yeah.
That's been a big change in the last couple of years. But you know, I've got my setup and I can log in and I VPN into my work and can get everything done here in my office that I can at work.
Now, did the city pay or buy your computer, your monitor?
Yeah, they still own everything. All the hardware, pretty much everything is theirs. But you know, they don't they actually want me to move to a laptop, and I was like, I don't know if I want to run GIS stuff off a laptop. So, but
Okay.
you know, yeah, I feel very fortunate, but I feel like a lot of jobs are going that way. At least maybe the analyst level higher, or a lot of them are starting to be hybrid or remote at this point.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Any other questions? I think you've satisfied everyone, Brett.
Hopefully I wasn't too boring. I'm just trying to brain dump all the different things I can think
No, I
of,
think
you know?
I think everyone will agree. This is good information. So I think we got another question here, Brett.
Yeah.
You mentioned an asset management system at the beginning of what was that management system? Asset management with us? Where'd you
Yeah, so there's a couple different ones out there. But the one that we use here at the city is called Infor Public Sector. It was originally called Hanson. Am I still sharing my screen?
Yeah.
Is it Art Catalog? Can you?
Yeah. Now it's
This web browser. Can you see this?
Yep.
I'll just show you what it looks like. So it has a web interface. All of our utility data is built into this asset management system. And in here, we do things like work orders, like different types of analysis and asset analysis and maintenance grouping, so that, you know, our out in the field staff does these like exercises our valves on a regular basis, or operates our hydrants, and you know, different, and jets our systems, and does all these things. It's all built in here into our asset management system. And then on the back end, we're tied into our GIS system through it's basic. All it is basically every asset is tied in through 3 fields that give it kind of a unique value. And then we have a toolbar called Geo Administrator, and we can pull that data into like, it's just a little, here, I'll just show you. It's easier to show you. So like say this valve right here, our staff kind of wants to know the work order history of it. So I'll just open it here. And we can see right off the bat kind of where it is, kind of a descriptor. We go in the structural tab and we can see it's a gate valve. It's open. It takes 26 turns to operate. And then looking at the life history, we can see how many work orders were generated on it, what activities were performed on it. So there's that type of integration. And there it's Hanson or N4 Public Sector is just one of those softwares. Some of the other ones are like CityWorks is a big one. Beehive Industries is another one. Trying to think, a lot of these people are partners with Esri. So if you go on to like Esri's, I forget what they're called, like they're partners, you'll see a lot of the different softwares that integrate with GIS, but this is the one that kind of got me the job because I knew all about it before I came there, and that's really what put me over the edge with those other folks. Yeah, does that answer your question?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Yep.
Anything else? Got another one here, Brett.
Yeah. Yep.
So with the industry going to more remote style, what kind of opportunities are there for freelance work?
You know, I think I've been on
That
Fiverr.
A thing, or
Yeah.
it's kind of like
sorry,
you have
my-
somebody in-house?
Sorry. I think I haven't looked myself, but I believe on the app Fiverr, you can do GIS freelance work on there, and you know, sometimes it's like making maps for people or doing some cartography type related work. There's also an application, the Benza, that works with Adobe Illustrator and GIS that we use to make like our bike maps. So there's probably some other opportunities out there I've looked before, but it was kind of competitive from what I remember. I would check out the website Fiverr and see what it's all out there, because I know that there is freelance work. I haven't done it myself though.
Does Longmont or do you guys do all your GIS in-house, or do you have anyone that's doing their own GIS work do things for you, or?
Sometimes we hire consultants to help us. It's usually some type of firm. But we also get a lot of work done through our partnerships with our Front Range Community College here to do work like collect data, like our signs. But for the most part, because of the nature of our data, at least in public works, most of our data is only internal, and there's a lot of risk factors to that being external. So a lot of our GIS work is just inside the city.
Mm-hmm. Anything else from anyone? I know I keep saying this, but we always keep getting one, so.
Yeah.
I think we'll probably wrap it up, Brett. This was awesome. Thanks, man. I really appreciate it. Nice.
Yeah,
nice
absolutely.
job.
I think this is probably a better format to do it anyway, so I can kind of show some examples and stuff instead of being up in front of class and holding up a board or something like that. I guess I could have got on the
Right.
computer, but a lot of my stuff is only accessible through PC. So anyway.
Yeah, well, I appreciate the time. I know everyone else does, and a lot of good information for the students. So thanks, Brett.
Absolutely, absolutely. Jeff, if you want to give them my information, if they have any questions.
Yeah, I was gonna ask you, can I share
Yeah.
your email with anyone that needs it
Yep.
or wants it?
Yep,
Okay.
absolutely.
Okay, I recorded this video as well. Is that okay if I
Oh, yeah. Yep,
push it out there, maybe on the website or something like that?
sure.
Okay, all right. Well, thanks, Brett. Have a good evening, and I'll certainly share your email, and we really appreciate this a lot. Thanks, man.
Yep.
Absolutely, absolutely. Thanks, everybody. Appreciate your time.
All right, I'll talk to you soon, Brett.
Okay, sounds good, Jeff. See
All
ya.
right, see
Bye.
you, man.